for Successful Career Change, sponsored by the Hiatt Career Center at Brandeis. We host these webinars every month, so thank you for joining us here online and for those joining us for the recording. My name is Alexandra Stevens, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Career Programs here at Hiatt, and I'm happy to be with you today as your moderator. I'm also looking forward to welcoming Pamela Weinberg, who has done a number of webinars with us in the past. She's a certified career management coach and personal branding strategist based in New York City and also a Brandeis alum. She works with individuals in all stages of career development, from millennials to women in transition and to career changers, which all of you likely are today. She provides coaching to help clients reach their career and branding goals. So welcome, Pamela. So happy to have you with us today.
Thank you, Alexandra, and welcome to all of you who are on the webinar today. Okay, so we're going to get started. Thank you for the introduction. And since you got to know a little bit about me, I'd love to know a little bit about you. Unfortunately, we can't see each other and meet in person, but I thought maybe the next best thing would be to do a poll so I could learn a little bit about who is on the webinar and try to give examples that would be most pertinent to most of you here. So Alexandra, if you could launch the first poll and share the results with us, that would be great.
Yeah, so the first poll is, which best describes where you are in your career change or job search today? So if you could take a moment to just fill out the best choice here. Are you employed but contemplating a change? Are you unhappily employed and actively seeking a career change? Are you unemployed and actively job seeking and looking to change careers? Are you attending graduate school, potentially for a new career, or something else? And I'll give you just a few more seconds to weigh in. If you selected other and want to let me know what that other means by typing it into your question box, that would be great. Give a couple more seconds for everyone to weigh in. And then I will share the results with you. So, Pamela, it looks like 30% are employed but thinking about a change. A quarter of our listeners are unhappily employed and actively seeking a change. And the other third is an unemployed job seeker looking to do a career change.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all so much for participating in the poll, and that gives me a good sense of who you are and what we're working with today. So without further ado, let's talk about what we expect to get from the webinar today. We're going to talk about career change readiness. Are you ready to make the move and change careers, and what that would mean for you and how to sort of do those assessments? We're going to help identify your transferable skills. We'll be hearing that term a lot today because knowing and being able to articulate your transferable skills is really the key to making a career change. We're going to look at some of the tools for the career changer, what a resume might look like, cover letter, and a LinkedIn profile, 3 very important tools. We'll talk about some next steps, sort of a game plan for after the webinar today, what steps you need to take to make your career change a reality, and we will have time for Q&A. So I'm going to try to give us 15 minutes for questions and answers. So as I said, one of the first things to think about is, are you ready for a career change? And as Alexandra mentioned, I'm a career coach, so I see clients all week who are looking either to, many of them looking to change jobs or change careers. And it's a lot easier to change your job than it is to change your career. Looking for a job in the same field and industry, you tend to have, the skills you need, and you tend to have a network that you already have established. Changing careers, you may not have that as readily available. So that's something to really think about. Sometimes people are really dissatisfied with their job, but might be happier doing that job in a different kind of environment. So that's something to sort of keep in mind rather than just throwing out the job completely. Maybe it's a change of environment that you would be looking for. Is your reason emotional or situational? Again, thinking about changing jobs versus career, some of us have a boss who we can't stand or work in an environment that we find to be toxic. That's, more of an emotional feeling, like I gotta get out of here. I can't do this anymore. So you really want to think about, what was driving your desire for the change, and that should really also help point you in the right direction. Finances. How important is, earning the same amount of money that you've been earning? Oftentimes, if we change careers, we're not going to be starting at the same level that we were at in our former career. So it may mean taking a pay cut until you reach a certain level. Important factor for most of us is the salary. So something to just keep in mind as well. Flexibility. How flexible are you in making this career change? What are you willing to give up? How important is it for you to have an easy commute, to have certain hours, to possibly have to relocate based upon where the jobs are? Again, these are sort of things we would basket into career values, the things that are most important to us in our career. So those are all things that are, I would say, really important to think about and to assess. And there's a featured resource at the bottom called businessballs.com, and one of the assessments that they talk about is a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is also, sort of a fancy way of assessing really the pros and cons of what your next move is going to be. What are the potential positives? What are some of the potential negatives? Where do you see the opportunities headed? And what are the things that could stand in your way? So I recommend doing an analysis such as this, or even just a simple pros and cons sheet on a piece of paper to really go through the different potential scenarios before you embark on your career change. So as I mentioned, transferable skills are going to be your best friend in talking about what your new career is, and really knowing what those are is really important. So we all have a lot of skills that we've developed through our careers and even potentially our hobbies and interests. But it's not always easy to access and to isolate those skills, well enough to discuss on resumes or in job interviews. So one of the goals of this presentation is to guide you through the process of categorizing your skills and making the most of them for your job search. So the first thing we want to do is take inventory of what you offer. What are your top skills and abilities? It's really important to know what you have to offer. So I recommend making a list of what you've accomplished in your career and what skills you have used to make those accomplishments a reality. Were they some of your social skills? Were they technical skills? Were they field-specific skills? Were they, for example, negotiating, researching, financial analysis, and important things, you're hardworking, you're trustworthy, you're well-liked. This is one of the most important skills we have. And you want to ask, where have I used these abilities, skills, and attributes in my career? And ultimately, we want to think about linking those skills with results. What results have you gotten in your past career utilizing these skills? And that's going to be important for your resume and cover letter. Here are the basic transferable skills categories. We have our technical skills, we have our functional skills, and we have our people skills. Technical skills are typically job specific. You may work in a healthcare environment and you have certain software programs that you utilize in a hospital, say, or you work in as a bond trader and you use the Bloomberg terminal. Those are technical skills that are very job specific. If you're moving from being a bond trader to marketing, you're probably not going to have to use a Bloomberg terminal. So those are sort of the technical skills that may not be as easily transferable. The functional skills and the people skills are really the ones that are the most transferable skills. Functional skills are extremely useful. So we're going to focus a lot in the presentation on your functional skills and your people skills. And I list here some examples of what functional skills are: communication, planning, organizing, problem solving, managing, being part of a team. Those are all functional skills. And our people skills are soft skills. And these are the skills that are typically more easily communicated in a job interview than necessarily on your resume or in a LinkedIn profile. And those examples would be taking initiative, being resourceful, being reliable, and again, probably the #1 skill is being likable. So as I say here, the most marketable candidates know what their transferable skills are. So we're going to do an exercise coming up soon to help define excuse me, your transferable skills. And the nice thing about changing careers is you don't have to bring all of your skills with you. There may be things that you are good at, but that you never want to do again. You may be great at analyzing data, but you may not want to be that person anymore in your new job. That may be just what you want to leave behind, where you want a job that's more outward-facing rather than inward-facing. So you want to think about what skills you enjoy and utilize those skills to market yourself. As I say here, targeting skills that offer you the greatest personal reward. And you want to think about the areas that you don't want to do anymore, the burnout. Maybe it's you're really good at doing presentations and you don't want to do presentations anymore. Or you've had great success doing sales, but you want a different career track for whatever reasons. So you want to really think about what skills you want to bring with you and what skills you don't, and they're both equally as important. So I'm going to use myself as an example. I've been a career coach for 10 years, and I'm a career changer myself. So I really have practiced what I'm preaching today. Before I was a career coach, I was the author of a book called City Baby, which is a resource guide to having a baby in New York. And I wrote the book and I updated it every 2 years for about 16 years. So I wrote the book, and it in conjunction with writing the book, I did a lot of public speaking, I did a lot of workshops, and ran groups. So when I thought about what my next act was going to be, what my next career was, I thought about what I really liked. What were some of the skills that I had really enjoyed using in my past job? And those skills that I enjoyed were being an entrepreneur, being a resource to others, and running groups and workshops, and really helping people. So I wanted to look for my next career where I could utilize those skills, and I really found that in this career I can. I did not enjoy the tedium of updating that book every year. Something that I did not want to do was to have to be on deadlines writing and continuing to be updating the book. So I knew that I didn't want a career that would entail that. So I really thought a lot about what skills I wanted to bring with me in my next career and what skills I didn't. So we're going to be able to help you do that next. So our next thing we're going to do is that I have a template for a transferable skills exercise. And this exercise is going to help you link your tasks or job functions with the skills that you need to succeed. And you want to complete a separate worksheet for each job or activity. In the task column, you're going to list each function of your job or activity. And in the skills column, you're going to list the skills that you have used to complete the task. And you're going to rate yourself according to your level of competency. And you're going to put a check next to the skills you've enjoyed using. this is going to help determine which skills you are going to move forward with. So this is sort of a rudimentary worksheet, and we list the task, which is data analysis. What was the skill that you used in order to analyze data? You utilized Excel, and you were very good at that. So you scored yourself a 1, that you were highly skilled. And the next thing to think about would, you'd make a check. Do I want to take this skill with me to my next job? I'm obviously very adept at utilizing Excel to analyze data. Is this something I want to do in my next career? So that is, and you're just going to do that for every skill that you're using going forward. So now that you sort of, once you've completed that exercise and you have isolated some of your transferable skills, you want to be able to match those skills with jobs. And I've given you a few different resources and ideas on how to do that here. If you're not sure, and many of us making a career change aren't exactly sure either which career they want, or they may know which career field they're interested in, but not necessarily the specific job. So these resources are going to really be very helpful in pinpointing the potential directions you can go in. Knowing which jobs require specific skills will really help you to plan how you're going to present yourself in your branding, your resume, your interviews, and your LinkedIn. So one of the things to do is check out some of the online job boards, like Indeed.com, or you can do it through LinkedIn. Put in the job title. Say you're thinking about being a marketing associate. So you can just put in the word marketing associate into either an Indeed or a LinkedIn. You're going to get some jobs that will come up. Read through those job descriptions, and you're going to start to see a lot of similarities for what skills they require. They're going to say right then and there, maybe, communication skills, previous experience in working with a team, the ability to meet deadlines, and they may have some specific technical skills that are required, ability to use Photoshop, basic coding. So you're going to start to get a sense of which skills you have that can be transferable, and also which skills you may not have, which you may need to acquire. We're going to talk a little bit about that more coming up. ONET is a government site, and I think it's truly excellent. What I love about it is that you can actually put in the types of skills you have, say data analysis and other skills, put them into ONET, and ONET will spit back at you which jobs or careers are need those skills. So it's sort of a backwards way of going into it. Using your skills, you can back into which careers would be good for you because you have those skills. So that's another great tool. One of the best ways to find out what skills you need for the jobs is to network. We're going to talk a lot about networking, because networking is typically the key to getting your next job. 80% of jobs are gotten through people you know. So whether it's a new job or a new career in a different field, speaking to people, having informational interviews is going to be a great way to get the most up-to-date information on your next career. So I mentioned acquiring new skills. So what will happen once you start doing some research is you realize you have some great transferable skills that will work for a new career, but it may be that you're going to need to acquire some new skills. For, again, myself as an example, when I went out on my own and became a career coach, I needed to go back to school, which I've done. I've done multiple programs, but I got a certificate program at NYU to become a career management specialist. I also had to learn how to use PowerPoint, because that was not something that I had done in my past career. So I've had to acquire new skills along the way for my new career, so it's fairly likely that you will as well. So I've listed some of the more popular ways to acquire new skills. One is to take a class or a certificate program. Many of these, I actually did 2 different rounds of courses. One I did in person and one I did online. So there are many options. Volunteer. I like to call this smart volunteering. Volunteer in the area where you'd like to get hired. You want to work in a museum? Volunteer to work in the museum. So you can really get to learn the lingo, get to learn some of the systems, and oftentimes volunteer work leads to paid work. I've seen it happen with many of my clients. Being in the right place at the right time as a volunteer can put you on the fast track to being hired. Sign up for webinars like you did today, and Brandeis has a lot of webinars that are going to be very useful for career changers and building your career. Not only Brandeis, there are lots of other organizations that you can find depending on what you're interested in. Professional organizations, if you've decided you know which field you'd like to switch to, join a local professional association in that field. They often have free or low cost either webinars or in-person events that offer speakers and networking. So that's a great place to go to acquire new skills. Lastly, online tutorials. I really learned how to use PowerPoint by looking at by taking some of the PowerPoint tutorials and having it walk me through it. And there's really no better place to do that than YouTube. YouTube has some of the best tutorials, and you can pause so you don't feel like you're missing anything, and you can just go back and continue to watch. And I've acquired a lot of new skills that way, and I know many other of my clients have as well. And here I have a featured resource, which is lynda.com, which is now part of LinkedIn, and they offer many classes in lots of different areas for whatever your new career is. So that's a great place to look for potential new classes. So now we're going to talk about some job search tools. And before we go into this slide, I would love to launch our second poll, Alexandra, to ask you, what are the tools you are currently using to help with your career change?
Absolutely. So the poll question is up on your screen now. Which tools are you currently using to help with your change? Are you utilizing networking and informational interviewing, LinkedIn, your alumni network, hint, hint, job boards like Indeed, or something else? And please select all that apply. And if you did select other, let me know what that other means in your GoToWebinar question box so that we can share that resource with your fellow listeners. So I'll give you a few more seconds to weigh in here. Of course, we can all learn best when we're learning from each other. So if you do have any tricks of the trade, we'd be happy to share them out with everyone else. And I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results with all of you. So Pamela, it looks like a big range here. A lot of folks using LinkedIn, very happy to hear that. Same thing on the job board side. Only 12% using the alumni network, so maybe this will propel you to use it going forward. And 60% doing networking and informational interviewing, which is so great.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for participating in the poll. So very glad to hear many of you are using LinkedIn. We're going to spend some time talking about that too. So this slide is basically just, these are your basic job search tools. You're going to have your resume and cover letter. You want to have a great LinkedIn profile. You want to be really prepared on your interview to answer some of the questions that are going to come up inevitably. Why are you changing careers? What are you looking for? What are you bringing with you? And building and knowing your personal brand. So as a career changer, it's more important than ever to really know your story and to be able to tell that story. And especially to be able to tell it, when someone's going to say to you, well, I see you were in marketing and now you're moving to real estate, what's making you make that change? You want to be able to build that link for somebody. you want to be able to tell that story in a way that is believable and that makes sense, and that you want to be able to sell it. And I had to learn that from my career. I had a pretty solid brand as the author of City Baby. So how was I going to have credibility being a career coach? I had to really figure out how to tell my story, and I really utilized my transferable skills in making that story happen. And I felt like I wanted to continue to be a resource for people, continue to do workshops and seminars, and I was very interested in the intersection of parenting and careers. So I was able to really make that story work for me. So I would urge you to really think about how to make your story work for you, for interviewing purposes and networking purposes and cover letter purposes. Okay, so what are some challenges that are going to come up for career changers? And I think, we just, talked about this a little bit. You want to really know your strengths prior to your interviews. You want to practice talking about your transferable skills, not why your old career doesn't suit you. You want to be as positive as possible about your former career, what you gained from it, what you learned from it, and why you feel that having that career as a background is really going to help propel you into being successful into whatever your new career is. All about the positives. You want to be able to fill in the gaps on your resume and your cover letter, as we talked about before. So you're going to know your transferable skills, in and out. But you may have some gaps, some things that you just don't know and haven't done. You want to be able to address that somehow in talking to people on your resume, in your cover letter, whether it's that you've done volunteer work in a certain area, whether you've taken classes in a certain area, whether you've attended workshops in a certain area, whatever you can do to show a potential interviewer that you are learning that industry and filling in those gaps. And the next point is learning that industry logo. You want to be able to go into an interview feeling comfortable with whatever the language is, sort of the inside talk. And that's where your networking is going to become so important. Those informational interviews, speaking to people who are in the field, is really going to help you to understand what some of the nuances are. I also think a great way to learn that is by following companies that you're interested in and following industries that you're interested in, both on LinkedIn and on Twitter. So you're able to get sort of the most up-to-date information about what's going on in those industries and what's going on in the companies that you most want to work at. For instance, if you're interested in commercial real estate, you should be following some of the commercial real estate gurus on Twitter, on LinkedIn. You should be following the companies where they work so that you're really getting sort of the up-to-the-minute information on what is happening in the industry. That's really going to help you feel more confident in your meetings. Informational interviews, super important. So we noted that not many of you are using your Brandeis Alumni Network, so you're missing out on a great resource. So I urge you to tap into that network. There's 90 to 95%, some incredibly high statistic, of people in your alumni network are going to answer you if you email them. I just had that experience myself. Reaching out to another Brandeis alum who I didn't know, who answered me right away on LinkedIn. So it really does work. I urge you to go through your Brandeis Alumni Network. There's a very easy way to do that on LinkedIn. There's just when you get onto LinkedIn, you're gonna say alumni, and then you're gonna click on it, and it's gonna take you right to the Brandeis Alumni site on LinkedIn, and it's all broken down by region, by job, by company, and you'll be able to find people very easily who work in fields that you're interested in, and you make it super easy for you to connect. You want to, look at other contacts on LinkedIn that you have also, connect and reach out to people who are in fields that you're interested in, ask for introductions, follow up and keep in touch. I had a funny situation with one of my clients who's a young woman, probably 3 years out of college. So we were talking to her about her career search, and I said, so how are you on your networking? And she answered, oh, I did that already. And I just had to smile, because networking isn't something that you do once. Networking is something it's building a relationship. It's about following up and keeping in touch. You know that someone who you had an informational interview with is a Red Sox fan, and you saw a great article about the Red Sox. Shoot them the article. Hey, saw this, speaking of you, hope all is well. Doesn't all have to be about job search. It's about building a relationship. It's not, and it's also not a one-way street. So just remember, these are people who now are going to be in your networking life. You want to follow up, keep in touch. And you want to be prepared when you go on these informational interviews. What's your ask? Of course, you're going in to get information. What is your goal? Is your goal to have them introduce you to somebody else? That's a great ask. So nice to meet you. Is there somebody else that you would recommend me speaking to about this issue, about this career? Another ask is, what are some blogs or online sources you would recommend I read? What are some great professional organizations for me to join? What advice might you have for me if I want to get into this field? Is there additional education needed that you would recommend? Go in prepared with your ask, so you're always leaving with something more than you came for. LinkedIn. So super that, almost all of you are utilizing LinkedIn for job search. Here are some, tips on making your LinkedIn profile really work well for you. You want to have an appropriate photo. You definitely need a photo. You want it to be a photo where you look professional. You don't want to have a photo where you can see anything else in the background, anyone else in the background. You want to be dressed, as you would if you were going to a business meeting. You want to have a creative and descriptive headline, especially for a career changer. This is really important. You want to have a headline that doesn't only reflect the current job you have, but reflects where you want to go. And I know that this is difficult if you're currently employed, because we don't want to tip off, obviously, potential employers that we're looking for a job. So that's where the term creative comes in to play. We want to have a professional summary. This is so important as somebody who does a lot of personal branding with my clients. The summary is really what makes you unique and stand out. I think it's a really important part of your LinkedIn profile, especially for career changers. This is a place for you to tell your story, as I said before, to make that link to your former career, to the career you're looking into, and to really have that be able to tell potential employers why they should hire you. On that note as well, you want to have proper keywords in your LinkedIn profile. How do you know what the keywords are? You know what they are because you're going to be looking at job descriptions for the types of jobs that you want. And you want to make sure that you're using some of those same keywords in the job description in your profile, so that if a hiring manager is searching for someone, they're going to come up with you because you are using the right keywords in your profile. Recommendations. Recommendations are really important to have, and it would be great to have one recommendation per job, or if you've been at a job for a long time, then more than one, and perhaps in other departments. And if the recommendations could refer to certain skills that you have that are the transferable skills, more the better. You can use your LinkedIn profile also to build your brand for your new career. Post links to relevant articles in your new chosen field, join groups in that field, and of course continue to make connections. And we have the link here to the Brandeis Career Connections group that will help you get connected on LinkedIn.
Pamela, I just wanted to add in one thing as well, that in addition to LinkedIn to finding Brandeis alumni, you also have the Alumni Directory and BConnect, where you can get contact information for alums. So do remember that resource as well. LinkedIn's really great for searching purposes, and then you could then search for that person's name in BConnect and actually get their email. Makes it a lot easier to expound upon why you're contacting them versus using the tiny little invitation to connect box on LinkedIn.
Great, that's super, super resource. Thank you, Alexandra. So moving on to some of our other tools, we talked about LinkedIn as a tool. Your resume is, of course, going to be a tool. And I'm sure most of you have a resume already. You want to just tweak your resume to reflect where you're going, not where you've been. So we want to include any relevant coursework on the resume to support the new skills that you've acquired. Add any of that volunteer work that you've done in your new field that, again, gives you those transferable skills. As I mentioned for LinkedIn, you want to also utilize those keywords throughout your resume. And don't be afraid to reorganize your resume also to include bullet points that utilize those transferable skills that are going to be most relevant to your next job, and to take out some bullet points that you feel may not be as relevant or that you don't want to highlight on your resume. So really, make this resume a tool that's going to work for you for your next career. Don't worry about it not being exactly reflective of the entire job you did. You want to really be able to make it work as a marketing piece for where you want to go next. And I've given some examples of some, we always like to have these accomplishment statements on our resume. So this example comes from a pharmaceutical executive who was looking to change careers, and he wanted to become a money manager, wealth manager, which is, by the way, as an aside, one of the hottest fields right now in wealth management. So these statements helped him to translate some of the things that he did as a pharmaceutical executive into action for a financial analyst. These are all things that would be important for somebody who is looking to see how he did in sales, how his management skills were, how he did in projects that he was able to present, and he, I think this provides sort of a good example for how he is not necessarily talking about the pharmaceutical industry, but really highlighting the skills and accomplishments he had in that position. In your cover letter, you want to focus on those transferable skills, and you want to utilize them in your letter. You want to look at those job descriptions. This is sort of the best way to get that research, and to really try to ascertain which of your previous accomplishments are the most relevant for the job you're applying for. So you may, again, going back to sort of that list of accomplishments that we did at the beginning of the presentation, thinking about which accomplishments you had and which skills you needed to complete those, to accomplish what you accomplished. This is that place where we want to be able to utilize those accomplishments and talk about which skills you used. Even if the accomplishments aren't exactly what you would need to accomplish in your new job, chances are many of the skills are. Tell your story. Again, what's your personal brand? Who are you and how did you get to where you are? How does your past experience make you a good candidate for this position? Finally, so we have our next steps. So what do we need to do next in order to attain our goals? Well, the first thing we need to do is set our goals. Setting goals, without our goals, we really don't know where we are going. So what is your goal? Do you want to have a job in 3 months? Do you want to do career research for the next month? Set up 5 informational interviews a week? What are your goals? Write them down. Be accountable. One of the most difficult things about looking for a job is that lack of accountability. that you have that no one is saying to you, did you do this? And that's why I think people like to work with a career coach. Did you do this? Did you make the networking calls? Let me see your updated resume. We need to speak about LinkedIn next week. You may not have somebody doing that with you, but you want to set those goals for yourself. So here are some of the things that need to get done in order to get the job you want. You want to complete that skills analysis. You want to research your career areas to find your fit. You want to determine what qualifications you need for the specific jobs. After you've done your analyses of what career area, you're going to start honing in on specific jobs. What skills do you need for those jobs? Which ones do you have? Which ones do you need to acquire? Then you're going to continue your networking. Many of you are already networking. You're going to continue networking. We have some new resources now with Brandeis. They're sort of maybe are untapped for many of you. So look into your Brandeis network to continue to build key connections. You're going to have your job search plan for yourself to really think about your goals. When would you like to be working and what needs to happen to make that happen? Update your resume and LinkedIn profile in some of the ways we discussed. And finally, you should be able to get the job you want. So I'm going to leave time. We have about 15 minutes for questions. I hope that you have some questions, and I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Pamela. This was a lot to cover in the past 40 minutes, so thank you so much. So folks, we're taking your questions now. So on any of the things that Pamela talked about, whether it's resume questions or cover letters or informational interviewing or some other resources you might find helpful. I want to remind you too, we're going into the holiday season. Holiday parties abound. You're going to be seeing family and friends. This is the time to start having some informal conversations with folks and see what they're doing for their work. Express that you are interested in changing careers because people can't help you if they don't know. So I know that's something that, Pamela, you've talked about before as well. Letting your Facebook friends know that you're seeking. It doesn't just have to be these big professional conversations. It could be very informal amongst friends.
Absolutely. I always say, so, the people standing next to you at your child's soccer game may be the people who are the key to getting you your next job. It doesn't just have to be, your professional life. Many times those people closest to us don't know that we're looking for a new job or don't know we're looking to change careers. So you're absolutely right, Alexandra. Tell as many people as you can. And that's a great way to practice your elevator pitch to really talk about your personal brand as well.
So Pamela, this is something that we've talked about before, and I think there are different schools of thought on it. What is your take on doing a skills-based resume versus a chronological resume? And can you just talk a little bit about what that is?
Sure. A skills-based resume basically is a resume, well, let's talk about the easier one first. So a chronological resume is a resume that most people have. That's your when you graduate college, you have your resume and it's chronological. You're listing your present career first, and then it goes down to your first career and your education. So, it started at 2016 and go back to, in my case, when I graduated, 1987. So that's a chronological resume. And that is basically, you're listing your jobs and you're listing some bullet points describing what you did at each job. That's pretty standard. A skills-based resume, which I'm sure the question came up because if someone, is a career changer and wants to focus on their skills versus the exact jobs that they had. What's this? So as Alexandra said, there are a few schools of thought. I would say if you have not taken a break from the workplace, I would say I would still go for the chronological resume versus a skills resume because it just doesn't raise any red flags. Alexandra, I'd be curious to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I think you could, some folks have done a combo platter really successfully. So they may have picked out the salient pieces that are transferable, to your point of highlighting transferable skills and putting those at the top of their resume, not chronologically, but then including their positions in a chronological fashion below that. I've seen that work really well. But, if you're doing a career change, your bullet points don't have to be every single thing that you did in your past jobs. You're really focusing on picking out the pieces that are going to be transferable to what you're going for next. So I think that's the biggest piece to take home.
Exactly. And I do agree with you that, you can do a professional summary on top of your resume that does list some of those key transferable skills to just get them out in front right away.
Great. So a couple other questions coming in here. Any advice on finding a new position specifically for the 60 plus job seekers? So finding a new job or career later in your career.
There's a great resource. It's called the Encore Career Handbook, and I think it's encorecareers.org or .com, but it's a great resource for sort of second act careers, and I think it's a wonderful place to go to look for careers, sort of at that stage of life, because it is different. I work a lot with, I'm actually running a group right now in New York for women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who are looking to change careers. And one of the questions I always get is about ageism. And it does exist. I'm very candid about that. So, this resource, the Encore Career Resource, really gives, I think, very good tips for overcoming that to the best of our abilities.
Great. So kind of related to that, when competing for jobs with younger folk, what is a good way to address the inevitable question that may come up in an interview? You've made more money in the past, you've had a more senior role. Why do you want to take a step down?
Well, I think it really, I think you want to, I think, we see people doing this, on TV and politicians. You don't necessarily want to answer their question. You want to give your pitch. So I think you want to be prepared to talk about why you are qualified for this job, and not really talk about, comparing yourself to someone else who you don't know, some fictitious 28-year-old. You can say, well, I would like this job because I feel that I can really help your company grow their bottom line. This is the experience that I have. This is how I feel I can really, what I can do for you.
Great. So here's another one. This person is at the beginning of the process. They have a job and want to make a shift, but don't know what careers might even be contenders. So really in the career exploration phase. So outside of building a list of their skills and what they want to transfer to a new career, what resources or strategies do you recommend to identify potential match careers?
Well, I would say, speaking to a career coach can be really helpful. And I think, do you offer that at Brandeis, like a session with a career counselor for alums?
Why, thank you for asking that. We do.
Okay.
So we offer free career advising for life for Brandeis undergraduate alumni. So you can speak one-on-one with our alumni career counselors. One of the things that our counselor may do with you in a session is encourage you to take Type Focus, which is an MBTI personality assessment test, which comes up with helping you identify your values, skills, and interests, and what are potential career matches for you. So that's one step. But certainly speaking with other professionals, using LinkedIn as a search tool to see, what, this person is doing a really interesting thing, and they had my same major when I was at Brandeis, for example, and now they're doing X. And seeing in their profile, what their career trajectory was that got them to that point. I think the more conversations you have with people in different fields, the more you're going to be able to tease out what is most interesting to you. But certainly a career advising appointment, like Pamela mentioned, taking online assessments like the MBTI indicator would be great first steps as well.
Also, going back to one of the resources that I mentioned on the slides, ONET.
Yes.
ONET also is another way, because that really helps you put in the skills you have, and it actually spits out potential career choices. So that's at least a start to sort of research whatever careers they come up with. And then you can use a resource like vault.com, VAULT.com, which talks about specific careers and job families within those careers, within those industries.
Excellent resources, both of those, and we certainly advise both students and alumni to use them here at Brandeis. Question, do you have any advice for people who want to keep their current full-time job but want to add on a part-time sideline? For example, consulting, to either expand a hobby or leverage volunteer experience into a side job? It's a great question. So it's not necessarily changing careers per se, but maybe adding on a side career.
I think it's great. I think it's something that's very common now. A lot of people don't just have sort of one career for life, or even only one career at the same time. Many people have other interests that turn into careers. So, I think as long as, I think you have to sort of think about if it's a conflict, that's, what I would say first. You don't want to do anything that's going to harm your big paycheck. So I would say, if you're going to be doing consulting that's in your current field, you want to just be transparent and let your company know. I mean, if it's something that's a completely different hobby, you're in financial management and you want to do flower arranging on the side, I can't imagine it would be a conflict. But if you're doing something that's similar work, you just want to make sure that you are okay, doing that. And the other the other thing to think about is you probably need to figure out how to market yourself. It may not be using LinkedIn. You may want to use LinkedIn just for your main profession, and think about maybe using some other forms of social media, or developing a website. Maybe you promoting yourself on Instagram, depending on what your side gig is. Just some things to think about.
Absolutely, and to add on that and to reiterate what you've said about networking, how important it is to reach out to your network and people who are doing similar things to see how they got their start. Again, Brandeis alumni, great resource for you there. They wouldn't necessarily see you as competition if you're asking them questions and they're in a slightly different vertical, for example. So I think people who are doing consulting work and doing side gigs are happy to talk to each other and kind of share best practices.
Right.
I don't know if you've found that, Pamela.
Absolutely. I think that's very true. Good advice.
Great. So we're nearing the end of our time here, but one of our listeners did share a resource that he has used called General Assembly.
Yes,
in Boston.
Great resource in New York as well.
Yeah, so it looks like it's based in several cities, offering coursework and tutorials and other educational organizations as well. The American Graphics Institute. I mean, there are so many depending on what your industry of interest is. So those are some things to keep in mind. So thank you so much to our listener for sharing those.
Great, thank you. Always love a good resource. And I've had a lot of clients take classes at General Assembly, and they're excellent.
Wonderful. So any final words, Pamela, before we get into just some next steps and housekeeping for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say a career change can be really overwhelming. And the one thing I hate is I know for my clients to feel overwhelmed, and I hate feeling overwhelmed too. So I would just say, break it down into small steps. Utilize this last slide on sort of your next steps to just really break down your career change into small, manageable pieces and just set those small goals for yourself to achieve the larger goal. Don't look at it all as like, you know, that big like, oh my gosh, I'm changing careers. This is so overwhelming. You know, just try to really manage doing one step at a time, and you will get there. It's a building block.
I think that's a great point. And again, to reiterate, you know, going into the holiday season, if you have a holiday party, maybe make a goal that you're going to talk to 2 new people and ask them what they do. So easy, you know, very concrete. And then you can feel proud leaving that you've accomplished that goal, and who knows where those conversations will lead. So I think it's just really about being open as well to what is coming into your path.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Pamela. Folks, Pamela has done several webinars with us, from personal branding to networking, to re-entering the workforce after a gap. So please take advantage of our archived webinars if you liked what she had to say today. She speaks on a variety of other topics.
Thank you, Alexandra.
Yeah, and so also please take a moment to fill out our satisfaction survey when you log out today to let us know how we did. We do take everyone's feedback into account. We share it with Pamela, and we also take your suggestions for other webinars down the line. So our December webinar, for the folks who are a little further along in the process of a job search, is how to negotiate a higher salary. Such a hot topic and such an awkward, potentially, conversation. So we'll give you the tools to make that as seamless as possible once you get to that step in your search. Also, as I mentioned before, Brandeis undergraduate students and alumni get free career advising for life through the Hiatt Career Center. Not many universities are able to offer that to our alums, and we're so happy we can. So you can give us a call to schedule a free one-on-one appointment, either in person or phone or Skype. We are not geographically discriminating, so we will see you wherever you are at. And I just want to leave you with my contact information as well. Again, my name is Alexandra. I'm the Associate Director of Career Programs here at the Hiatt Career Center, and we're so happy you were able to join us for today's webinar. Please get in touch. Utilize the resources on our career website as well. We have some sample resumes, including sample skills-based resumes, chronological, to see what might work for you. And also join us on our LinkedIn group. And remember that your Brandeis community is a great networking community for you as you embark on your next steps. So thank you so much from all of us at Brandeis and the Hiatt Career Center, and wishing all of you a very happy Thanksgiving next week.
Thank you, everyone. And I also wanted to add, if you have any questions that you didn't get to answer on the webinar, if anything comes up, please feel free to reach out and email me directly, and I'm happy to answer them. And thank you so much for your time today.
Awesome. Everyone will be receiving the link to this recording later on this afternoon, as well as the link to the PowerPoint slides. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexandra.